Okay, in this video, what we want to do is now start talking about this data we've been alluding to all the way through. If there's one thing that's really new to this, it is understanding what we need to do, okay, and when it comes to data. This is probably the hardest part of this. It's not that hard, but it's probably the hardest part. Once you understand this and you actually grasp this and you take your time with this, as you're writing your first couple programs, you will understand. Do not race through this piece, okay? But let's pay attention to exactly what we're trying to do. Number one, the fact of the matter is, even though we're breaking down our program into modules, what we still want to do is utilize our resources as efficiently as possible. This takes us back to our discussion around variable scope, okay? So if you recall, we have class level variables and we have local variables. Okay, we use class level variables if we want to basically have variables that could be utilized in multiple procedures. And we have local variables that once we're done with the particular procedure, we want them to go out of memory, right? And then class level, as we said before, could be available to multiple procedures, or they basically stay in memory through the life of the program. And so you can accumulate and so on, okay? So the next piece here is that what do we do now with that as it relates to modularized programming? Well, here's the good news. We don't want to change it. Anything that was going to be a local variable, if we did it all in one procedure, will maintain a local variable. We still want to maintain that efficiency of our resources, meaning we want to declare these variables here, and once we hit end sub, we want it to be out of memory. Okay, that'll be my inputs and my outputs. Does that make sense? So anything that would have been a local variable before should be a local variable now. You're going to declare those variables in the main routine. Yes, you could, if you wanted to, make everything a class level variable. That would be incorrect. Your program would work, but it'd be incorrect. You'll be utilizing your resources inefficiently. So I don't want you to do that. And if I see you doing that, I'll probably call you out on it and lower your grade. You want to use your variables as efficiently as possible, and we're not changing how we do that based upon modularization. We should, as I said before, anything that was going to be local prior to should be local now. So when we get to our design, as we kind of did, and we go back up here and we said these are going to be local, they should stay local, okay? Nothing changes in this regard. And those will all be defined, as I just said a second ago, saying it again because it's very important, in my main routine, in this case, my button click. Does that make sense? So then the question is, okay, I have these variables here, but I broke down all the code. How am I going to get data into them? How am I going to use the data? Well, that's what we have to learn, and that's called passing the data, okay? And passing the data is something you need to learn how to do, because not only you're going to do it in this language, you're going to do it in every language you ever learn. Every language does this, okay? Learns how to pass data. Passing data is a big thing we do in programming. So don't avoid this. Learn how to pass data. Learn how to do this correctly, okay? It's not very hard, and once you do it, you're fine. Will you come across some errors? You probably will originally, and this is when you want to start using your debugging tools to find those errors, okay? So with that said, but if you take your time, you'll get the hang of this very quickly, and it won't be that big a deal. So what is it we want to do? Well, if we're going to get and validate our input, we're going to take our inputs and pass them down. So in a sense, what we're doing here is we're saying Miss main routine here is passing down empty buckets, okay, or inputs that we define as local down to get and validate inputs, okay? That's what she's doing, all right? She's passing this down. Miss get and validate inputs is going to then pass down an empty bucket down to get and validate base. And what this guy should do down here is, or this lady, guy, whatever should do, is pass back a filled bucket of good data. Or if it's not good, indicate that it wasn't good. And that's what we're doing in our program here, okay? I actually have for you, if you go out to this, a structure chart that shows the data. Let's go ahead and bring this up. and it's out here. And so what I'm talking about here is this. Now, you don't have to do this for me. I just kind of did this for example. The main routine is passing down Boolean validated and the empty price and trade. Boolean validate is something that we're going to utilize that basically we declared right here as a Boolean. Boolean means true or false. I set it as true. Do you see that there? I set it as true, meaning make sure you set it as true originally. I'm going to pass this down. So with this little bracket right here, so I have a parenthesis, and I'm saying I'm going to pass down the DBL base price, which all I did was declare it, so it's going to be 0. The DBL trade is going to be 0. There you are right there. And the Boolean validate is going to be true. I'm passing that down to get and validate inputs, okay? Okay? And so what this looks like is I'm passing this down. These are empty. I'm passing it down to get and validate base price. And then what I'm going to do is this guy right here is going to pass back either a valid price or he's going to pass back nothing, and with a Boolean validated set to false, meaning it did not validate. The same thing here. So what I'm doing here is I'm passing data all around, okay, based upon what I'm doing. As you see, then this person here is going to pass the valid stuff back and the Boolean validated back, letting the main routine know that you have good data or you have bad data. Does that make sense at all? Once again, let's look at the code. So in this case here, I'm passing this down, okay? So here's Boolean get and validate input. All right, I'm receiving it. So the order in which you pass it, base price, the trade, validated, must be in the exact same order that you receive it. This is called a signature, meaning when I say that, meaning you can't put Boolean validated over here first, and this second, and that third, and this one third. It won't work that way. It has to be one-to-one. It must be in the exact same location. You also need to define it as the data type that you're actually passing down. So if you're passing down a double, tell it you're receiving as a double. If you're passing down a double, tell you're receiving as a double. In this case over here, we're passing down a Boolean, so we need to tell it that we're passing it down as a Boolean. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, you see these things called ByRef there, right? As you'll see, there's ByRef a lot there, and when we get down here, you'll start seeing these things called ByVal. All right, so here is probably the trickiest part of the whole thing. In VB, you can distinguish between ByRef and ByVal. What you want to do is if you're planning on changing the contents of that variable that we just passed down, you want to receive it ByRef. I'm going to say that once again. Hopefully you're writing this down. If you want to change the contents of the variable I'm passing down, you're going to receive it ByRef. If all you need to do is read it and never change it, you receive it ByVal. Does that make sense? Now you might be asking, well, can I just read it if it's passed ByRef? The answer is yes, you can. And your follow-up question might be, well, can I just pass everything ByRef? Once again, just like using, class-level variables for everything, it's inefficient. There's a lot of overhead that goes with passing something down ByRef. You'll learn what that overhead is if you ever take C programming, because you actually will learn all about what ByRef actually is going on behind the scenes. There's a lot going on behind the scenes with this ByRef that you have to deal with right now. But later on, if you take C programming, and I highly recommend you do, I think everybody should take C, because I think it's a great language to learn, because once you learn C, you know everything. With that said, there's a lot of overhead. So you only want to use ByRef if you're going to change the contents of that particular variable. Okay? If you're only going to read it, then all you got to do is receive it ByVal, and then go from there. All right, so let's kind of look at this. So I declared my variables, okay, and what I'm doing is I'm passing down empty buckets, just like I said right here. All right, empty buckets down, Boolean validated empty here. This guy then is going to pass down empty bucket of empty price and the Boolean validated. Look how the code reads here. It's going to receive it ByRef, 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 because I can potentially change each and every one of these. I'm passing down get and validate base price. I'm passing down the empty base price and the Boolean validated. Look what's going on here. I'm going to do the exact same code I did before. I'm going to check to see if it's numeric. And if it is, I'm going to pass that into DBL base price. Okay, that changed it right here. That's why I received it by ref, because I physically changed it. I put the contents in there. Boolean validated stayed as true, okay? But if it was bad, it would have came down here. It wouldn't have moved it in there, but I would have changed Boolean validated to false, meaning it was bad. Meaning the input that somebody gave me, my user gave me, was incorrect, and I would show this message box. It will return back up here, and I will check Boolean validated, okay? And if it's true, I'll go ahead and validate the trait. If it's not true, it will go to end sub, then it will come back up here, see that it's not true, see it's false, and then fall out to end sub 2. I'm going to give you a video, again, another video this week, and we'll walk through this, debugging it and watching everything work on how everything is passed, okay? But what your job is right now is to understand a couple things coming from this video. Everything that was supposed to be local variables before should be local variables now. Nothing's changed with that. We're going to introduce a Boolean validated here, okay? And so on, okay? A Boolean validated, to flag if the data was good or not. I'm also going to say here that every one of your main routines from now on should look very similar, if not exactly like this. Of course, you're going to be passing different data based upon the program you're doing, but it should have get and validate, checking to see if everything was good, and if it was, then going ahead and doing your calculations and your displaying. Does that make sense? That's the only thing that should happen in your main routine. No calculations whatsoever. The other things you need to make sure you remember is it needs to be the order in which you pass the data within these brackets must be received in these brackets in the exact same order with the exact same data type. Okay? If you do a syntax error and make this double, more than likely you'll get an error somehow. It won't work. Okay? So you want it to be exactly how you defined your variables up here is how you're passing them. So we're literally passing them saying, here you go. Fill this up, bring them back, okay? And with doing that, they will stay as local variables. Does that make sense? Okay? All right? And once again, how you receive it is based upon what you're going to do with it. There's only two things you can do with it. One, just read it and not change it at all, just read it, and that will be ByVal. And if you're potentially going to change it at any point in time, you make it ByRef. And what do I mean by ByVal? We'll do one more thing here as I go through this. So, oops, let me get back to my other one here. I think this is a real good one for this discussion. In this case here, as you see, I'm passing valid price down to, here we go. Boom, 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 boom. Empty AF price I'm passing down. But in doing so, nope, okay. Let me get it here. We got a valid price right here, the base price right here to do my calculate tax. That piece right here, okay, that's AF price, the calculated AF price, and the valid price from my inputs, and the calculated AF price I got from over here, I would receive that in my calculate tax as ByVal, because the only thing I'm going to do is read it, okay? Take a look at the program, take a look at this, see if you can make heads or tails out of everything. This is probably the trickiest part, probably because it's so new to you, but don't make it hard. It's only one of two things, okay? And right now, I guess if you're, for lack of understanding, or if you just can't get it to work, make it ByRef to get it to work. But in essence, you want to make sure you don't, okay? Because we actually don't want to use ByRef if we don't have to. All right? So anyway, this particular video is all about how to pass data, how to create your data locally, and how to receive it either ByVal or ByRef. And hopefully I explained that well to you.